Good morning and welcome to the latest in the series of Flexible Space Association Workspace Wisdom webinars. I'm Jane Sartin from FlexSA, and we're joined today for our webinar by Tony Freeth of Tony Freeth Informational, who's a long-standing member of the association and well known in our industry. And he's going to be talking to us this morning about Wi-Fi in Flexible Workspace. In a moment, I will hand over to Tony to take you through his presentation. There is an opportunity for Tony to answer any questions at the end, and if you put those into the chat box, we'll take questions when we reach the end. And with that, I shall get your presentation up on screen, Tony, and hand over to you.
Okay, there we go. Today's first problem is my taskbar is hiding the advanced button, would you believe? Okay, so there we go. Right. Let me just try. Fine. Okay, it's gone. Right, sorry about the false start. Yes, hi everybody. Thanks for joining today. And I just talk a little bit about myself first of all. I see quite a few names I know in the attendee list, so that welcome people who do know me. And as Jane alluded to, I have been around a rather long time, being a FlexSA precursor BCA member. I go back as far as 1999. So a little bit of details about my background, and I have been working in Wi-Fi for at least 25 years. Just to mention, I'm also trialing something called Substack, which many of you have heard of. I've been asked over the period to see if I could record some of my experience in the industry over that period of time and some ideas, etc. So we'll give it a try and see what happens. So if you want to get this presentation or some other information, just register for Substack and we'll see how it goes. Right, purpose of today, Wi-Fi Challenge, is so that you can evaluate how your Wi-Fi is doing, and particularly how it fits your brand. And the reason I think this is interesting is because Wi-Fi is, as I say, is not a given. There are lots of different ways of doing it. There's lots of variations, etc. And you may not be aware of all of the things that impact how the performance and the presentation of your Wi-Fi. So we're going to cover a few of these things today in order: procurement, obviously, and interesting one regarding Wi-Fi as a product. So by the end of it, hopefully, we have touched very lightly on the key issues. We won't go into too much depth. You'll be able to follow up with questions and either personally or via the chat. And you should have a better appreciation at the end of it. Okay. Just to start with, go back a long time. I can't find many examples of people willing to volunteer their center or co-work as a bad example. So I've gone back in time to discuss what the impression of your Wi-Fi gives to your customers. And personal cases, I went many years ago to this place called Beta House in Berlin. And this was the center of all great things about co-working, and they were doing things you may have heard called jellies and whatever. And anyway, it's an exciting new world in 2010, 2012, etc. And as I walked in the door, I met the front of house team and then saw the Wi-Fi was this one rather wonderful ancient Cisco Linksys router. And my expectations fell to zero at that point. I'd come a long way and the impression was not good. And this raises the question of confidence and your presentation of your space. So what you want to do is make sure your Wi-Fi conveys not just technical competence, but also the values you expect to be associated with the brand. And as we point out, we're working over Wi-Fi now. Everybody's working over Wi-Fi. It's the first thing. If it breaks, you're the first thing you know about. What are we seeking from a Wi-Fi system? So when you go shopping for a Wi-Fi system or for re-evaluating it, there's a number of key points you need to address, and they won't be what the sales team are presenting to you. quite often, particularly the Wi-Fi manufacturers. They will talk about the things on the right-hand side, the extreme performance and all the things it can do and the latest features. But if I had to have one thing off this list, it would be reliability. I don't care too much if the Wi-Fi is a bit slow. What I want is 100% no fault operation. And that's the design criteria. What we're going to try to today is go through and see how we can make our reliability of our system better and select systems that give us reliability. Other things you might look at is you don't want to tie up staff time and you don't want to produce complexity for the users. So we want it to be a bit friction-free. We don't want too many steps. We don't want it to be too complicated to engage with. Okay, the rest of it makes fairly obvious reading. And just one last thing on what we're seeking for a Wi-Fi system. If you know your customer base, you might ask or think, what are they expecting to see? The majority of customers are not too worried about what the Wi-Fi is or who made it or whatever, but some particular specialisms, if you've got very important multinationals with big IT teams, you may be wanting to get a higher brand or a different type of Wi-Fi than you might do for the average solution. So just bear that in mind as we go through today. Okay. Right. Wi-Fi, 25 years of experience. Sum it up. Wi-Fi is very strange. And as I say, just because it works today doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow. There's a lot of things that stop Wi-Fi working or make it intermittent, and a lot of different causes. And I'm sure you've all experienced this over time. My favorite story is that I was visiting a co-work and somebody said the Wi-Fi wasn't working. I said, oh, let's have a look at it. I sat next to her. She pushed the laptop over. The Wi-Fi worked fine. I pushed it back to her. It stopped working. Push it backwards and forwards, on, off. And we eventually diagnosed that she was sitting immediately behind a steel staircase, and that was affecting the Wi-Fi signal. Very hard to diagnose those sort of things for a trouble ticket. Oh, a lot of things pop up on my screen here, so get rid of those. So there's a lot of things that make Wi-Fi quite strange. Metal density we talked about. You're sharing the Wi-Fi spectrum with other users, etc. So that interference can intrude and it's something out of your control you need to look at. Even passing aircraft, and I have actually seen this. There is a system where passing aircraft, your Wi-Fi can interfere with their radar and they will switch it off as they pass over. So very, very, very strange. On the right, the steel girder, if you look in there, you can see the luminaire of the drop ceiling that's shining in the corridor below. So this is in the space above the false ceiling. And this wonderful big steel girder, which is going to interfere with our Wi-Fi signals. And we will meet this steel girder again a little bit later in the presentation. And talking about variation, one of my favorites is somebody who had a perfectly good space with desks and thought it'd be nice to put in a privacy pod. So they put in a privacy pod and it worked okay. The Wi-Fi continued. And they thought, well, that's a good idea to put a few more in, and it all stopped. In other words, the moral is the changes that you make doing one thing can subtly interact with your Wi-Fi. So when everything stops working, or if you're not sure what's happening, ask yourself what changed recently. It's always a good guide. Okay, so let's just start with procurement. How do you buy Wi-Fi? There's three main methods we can talk about. The flex industry has turnkey providers. We'll look at those in a minute, and they produce a solution dedicated, designed for flexible workspace. Strangely enough, however, the majority of operators, of the kind of 6,000 in the UK and however many there are in the States, etc., actually realize their Wi-Fi using a local IT company or something else and buying the Wi-Fi, who buy the Wi-Fi direct from what we call the OEM, the vendors. So that's the Ciscos and the Fortinets and the Ruckus of this world. Okay, so that is the most common process. And then the third one is some people really do build their own. We just saw Beta House there. They built their own, and you saw how that turned out initially. But it does work. Graham Heffernan at Business Environment Group, he did an awful lot of his own work over the years. So you can actually do this, and if you're interested, well, we can have a discussion. So turnkey providers, as I said, the benefit is it's a single provider. Here's some names of common providers who you probably know well. Yardi, Essentials Technology we're in. I might add in passing, I think a company called WaveNet, we might add fairly soon. They seem to be heading in that direction to produce a turnkey solution. Not exactly sure, but I wanted to add another name there. If there's other names I missed, please put them in the chat, and my apologies to those companies if you do have a turnkey solution for the industry. The problem with turnkey is it's a total solution. It does the whole flex space, often including the business management software and the contract management and everything else. So it doesn't work for everybody. But as a drop-in solution, like your ventilation or something like that, if you really want to solve the solution, go to a turnkey provider. Very, very sensible approach, particularly if you're just getting started. We do have some concerns. I've mentioned it. It's a supplier's vision of your business model. They have to take the lowest common denominator of what works across the space, adds a few options and variations. But if you're going to be really innovative, you're going to find that you might clash with what the turnkey supplier's view is. Another one to point out, the financial model tends to be OpEx. In other words, you pay monthly, you never own the system. And again, if your business model works along that line, that's fine. We talked about, £1 to £3 per square foot per year. So there may be 20,000, typical space, maybe 20,000 a year. You may say that's fine. It's maybe less fine when times get tight, recessions, and you really want that £1 to £3 per square foot back because you need it. And you will never have it on, obviously, as an asset of the business. So things to consider for turnkey, but you get a guaranteed solution. Where you don't get a guaranteed solution is where you, and the most popular method is you find an IT company, they go and say, well, we think we could use Cisco or another product, and they build it for you to build your own Wi-Fi. And as I say, this is the majority approach of most operators, probably because they don't know too much about the industry. Many of them don't know about FlexSpace. They just operate on their own. It can be good value for money. The business model tends to be CapEx and a 3-year support contract. That's fine. And it can be automated. But you're in the hands of whoever you partner with here, the IT company. And in the last 5 years, I've interviewed, I reckon, 50 IT companies. Probably only 5 of those I would actually recommend. The rest of them are, they're not dedicated to flexible space. They bring their own ideas. And the trouble with an IT company, if it doesn't know about flexible space, it will do things which break your security and cause an issue. So bear that in mind. Which brand of Wi-Fi? Oh gosh, I've asked this question all the time. The leading brand, top 10, the hash number 1, Cisco Meraki, worldwide leading supplier. Ruckus, Aruba, Fortinet also supply flex space. Very good products. Technically can be a little challenging, not great. If the IT company doesn't know the product well, probably need a gold partner or something like that. Starts to look expensive. Not designed for flex space, so you do have to do like with group bandwidth management. Managing bandwidth can be a problem with some of these products. Okay, and the other concern is the license charges keep coming around. The industry in general seems to settle for one OEM, Ubiquiti, Unify. You'll see it everywhere. It costs a fraction of the other brands, and it's just technically got there to stage now that you can say it will fully support a flexible operation. But it still needs quite a bit of work to get it going. And it does, because it is trying to catch up with all the other makers, the technical base is changing all the time. And Ubiquiti, unlike these companies, Ubiquiti is quite hard to get support. However, I would say that anybody starting straight for the first time, look at a solution using Ubiquiti if you're going to be going down the OEM route. and only look at these if you have, when I talked about brand values, if you have a need for something a bit extra because they are expensive and complex. But that's for you to decide. And as I said, building your own, as long as you know what you're doing. There's a few of us around who can give you technical advice, something you can experiment with in the corner if you're trying to do something different with your space. And also if your space is very, very small, maybe doing 20, 30, 50 people as an outpost, that is worthwhile experimenting with. Okay, so that's got us started. Right, now let's talk about, on the procurement side, let's now talk about designing your Wi-Fi. What factors do you need to consider? And you may be designing this yourself, or you may be just standing over the shoulder of your supplier and wanting to ask them pertinent and pointed questions to make them perform and really consider all your options. And I just want to get this one out of the way first of all. When people sell Wi-Fi, they talk about its performance and its standard, and you've got to have the latest standard, etc. So my opinion, this is my opinion, and lots of people argue about it. Wi-Fi 6. Sorry, just somebody's asked what's an abbreviation? OEM, original equipment manufacturer. It means the maker of the manufacturer of the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi standard that you use, 6, 6E, and 7, they all will do the job fine. There's no real added benefits for 6E and 7 for flexible workspace at the moment. There may be a few arguments about that, but really not many people have the devices capable of using 6E and 7. So if you're sitting there with 6, or if you're buying there now, you're fine on this right-hand side. However, Wi-Fi 5 still does a good job for a lot of places. I know it's 2013, it's old, but if you can get maybe another year, a couple of years out of it, but you will be planning on replacing it. And if you're on Wi-Fi 4 in your location, then just quietly take measures to replace it. And if you want to know what system you're on, you can tell very easily. Find this little screen when you join the Wi-Fi, and on your Windows 11, click the information button and it will tell you what you connected at. This is also a good way of detecting user devices as to what their capabilities are. So that will let you know what's happening there. Right, the key question: construction of your workspace. How it's built affects Wi-Fi far more than any other factor. On the left, we have the Wi-Fi installer's dream. Stud partition, rock wall, no impact on Wi-Fi, 20,000 square feet, built out of that big hollow space, divided up with, that is absolute heaven for the Wi-Fi provider. On the right-hand side, a co-work in, I think, Pennsylvania from memory, where the internal architect went mad with bricks, steel, whatever, couldn't predict a Wi-Fi signal for 10 yards. It was very, very different. This will determine your Wi-Fi design, where your access points go, where how they are configured, etc. And so it's very important from your point of view as an operator to look at your building construction and decide or have a discussion with your Wi-Fi provider as to how the best way to go about it. But if you're looking at a new build, buying a building and it's 1960s, or it's conservation, or it's an old market full of steel, etc., anticipate that your Wi-Fi is going to be more of a struggle than if you're just going into a space which is lovely and open with stud partition. Design tips. I won't go through these all details. You can have a look at this offline. But the one or the two first ones are the ones I'll particularly point you to. If you don't know how to look at your general assemblies and your floor plans, get somebody to guide you, find the structural walls, get knowledge of your space that you're looking at, or your current space, find your steel. Okay, that includes, as I mentioned, ducting, ventilation, stuff that's being brought in, etc. But that basically get the ability to understand your space and how it's constructed, because that is a major effect on Wi-Fi. There are, believe it or not, 20 to 30, I'm not going to go through today, but 20 to 30 heuristics or simple Wi-Fi design rules, and that I will be putting in a document in the future. And if you know those ones, you could make a reasonable stab at designing your own Wi-Fi system, at least on the physical side and some on the operational side as well. So just to let you know, there's a lot of magic secret sauce involved in all this. Everybody has their different rules that they use when designing. I'll show you mine in a few seconds, but you don't have to have a fundamental understanding of radio communications. There are some rules that you can apply quite happily. So we talked about the difficult buildings now. Your building, unfortunately, is made of concrete. It does have rebar. Somebody has put steel everywhere. You will need to, instead of putting your access points, Wi-Fi points in the corridors, which is the ideal solution, where they're out of the way and get maximum coverage, you will have to put the Wi-Fi access into the room, because Wi-Fi is not going to get to it from outside the room. And there are some special Wi-Fi devices. You can see a picture here of one, and these do pretty well. They will increase your unit cost, because you will be paying 200, 300, whatever, maybe more to do an individual room. So bear that in mind, but your problems will decrease greatly because everybody's got access to it. Although, having said, I wouldn't put an in-room Wi-Fi access point that close to the floor, because somebody's probably going to put a filing cabinet or something metal in front of it. They are designed to replace, those of you who have network points, which have been less and less used nowadays, physical, Ethernet points. You can take a wall box out and replace it with one of these things and power it directly, and it makes this lovely neat job you see here. So going back to the point earlier, you've got to know the construction of the building. You've got to have some idea of how the Wi-Fi is going to move around within the building. And if it's not going to move very far from the corridors, then you have to look at what's called in-room Wi-Fi. So have a chat about that with your provider. Next question often asked is, do you need a survey? What sorts of surveys are there, etc.? Show you a couple of in a second. There's a planning phase and a post-planning phase when on results of the installation. Just a couple of things to mention here, particularly things like a sampling survey. If you're not too sure, you can go to a property with a mobile phone and a laptop. You can test what the transmission is going to be through particular walls if you're not too sure what's happening. So there are things that you can do. Can you do a Wi-Fi survey yourself as an operator, as a non-technical person? Absolutely. You can just download the software, about 100, 150 pounds. There's various places to learn how to do it, or talk to me and I'll write you some instructions about how to do it. But it's understanding how the Wi-Fi moves in your building is part of getting that reliability. And this is all of what we're talking about here, is improving the reliability. And just a couple of bits to warn you about is that some third-party Wi-Fi surveys and IT company surveys are a bit variable. If you're not too sure, get a second opinion. And Cisco, for one, you get to a point in the support process, they say, show me your Wi-Fi survey. And if you don't have one, they go, oh, well, can't help you. So just to warn you, that happens as well. Okay, so a desktop server. What do we mean by a desktop? Well, take our lovely space with just stud partitions, and we are going to cover it with Wi-Fi. And I told you about, we have some rules, and one of the rules will be how far will you allow for Wi-Fi before you get overlap with the next access point. So the little orange dots here are our access points providing Wi-Fi. A little bit of overlap. This secret sauce, my one is 7 meters. Other people use different values, etc. But this circle we call a cell, overlap with another one. And what your job is to juggle in the corridors and the public spaces and anywhere that's not in somebody's room, juggle these things around until you get the maximum coverage, and then decide, I got a little area by the wall here I'm not too sure about, etc. And you might want to do something special there just to improve the coverage. So thanks to by the way, the customer allowed me to use this as an example. From this, you can do a desktop planning result, and if the building doesn't have any surprises, doesn't have metal in the wrong places, you will find that when you do the actual survey, it comes pretty close, and you removed a huge uncertainty when you're getting a new building going. But sometimes our building is full of steel. I told you we'd be reacquainted with the steel girder. Well, the steel girder is running around here, okay, and the access point is here, good coverage in this area, and oh, what do we get by the wall? Oh, it's not cold, not very good Wi-Fi at all. It's less than 7 meters, less than 10 meters, it should be fine. It's not. Why? Because it's been obstructed. And you only know this because you've done a survey. Otherwise, you'd have the APs in the corridor and going, it's not connecting. And this is probably the single most common Wi-Fi support ticket you'll ever come across. The person is sitting there, Wi-Fi works fine, they go to sit there by the window, drops out, goes back here, works fine, goes there, drops out. That's why Wi-Fi is strange to most people. Okay, so that's what a heat map looks like for a single AP. What you do is you take all the different measuring points, all the different AP points, then you merge it together. That's too complicated for today, but you get the idea of what a heat map looks like. So if we were doing Gizmondo or something like that, this would be called false signs. Someone got it wrong. Let these be your flags. Okay, users keep disconnecting. There's areas of the space that always seem to cause trouble. Generally, staff and customer confidence is waning. You need to take steps. Okay, so that's the physical side and the design side. So change of mood now. Let's bring the marketing and the salespeople into this. Wi-Fi is part of your product. It's what you buy if you go into your Regis Center or anywhere else, or IWG, sorry, shows how old I am. And it will be bundled in with the costs, or it may be charged separately. There's 1,000 ways of different doing it. But when we're providing Wi-Fi, we've basically got two interest groups, if you like. We've got those for whom it's contractual, and those who we provide it as a service, but we're probably not charging for it, such as, let's deal with these ones first. The guests of companies, people come in as a guest of the company, they need to get on the Wi-Fi to demonstrate something or to work, etc. It tends to be free, not always, but tends to be free. Certainly your meeting rooms, Wi-Fi is bundled in with part of that, etc. But they come in as guests. You don't know you don't know who's going to turn up for a meeting, particularly external people. And so it goes. And your own building infrastructure may need, or usually does need, Wi-Fi as well. So these are not contractual. These ones, however, are all part of your brand. They're all part of how you package your Wi-Fi as part of your overall offer to the customer. And let's separate these out. If you go to one extreme, the small co-work just deals with individuals. It's not interested in companies or anything else like that. And when co-work started, that tended to be the model. You just got on the internet and worked as if you were in an airport lounge or something like that. And it's nice and it's easy because you're just an individual, there's nothing else to provide. And sometimes it's also an encouragement for them to move out the co-work area to move into a private office. But generally speaking, even companies, and I've been with 8 or 10 people, part of an organization, all working as co-workers, even though we're all sharing an office together, because all our stuff is in the cloud. On the other side is a company. Now, this is where value lies for operators, because people pay more for private offices, they pay more for the bundle of services that come with it. And a nice little rule is private office, private network. Okay, they are all secure within a network. They can attach their printers and other sorts of stuff. And you can even do things with bandwidth, which I won't get into today, but you can generate more revenue that way. Very important from the Wi-Fi point of view to understand the difference between these two. Some places just only use companies and don't use co-workers, and vice versa. And then the other aspect of, I think, the product is servicing the whole building. So Wi-Fi originally used to be every company got their own little Wi-Fi point, and today very difficult to manage and look after. The current standard, if I'm looking at recommendation now for an operator, will be cover your whole building with a member network, with a guest network, and then your catch-all network for devices that don't, play ball. Some large occupiers, you may give them their own network as part of the deal, but reserve that. You can't create many special networks, so you reserve that for the real high-value customers. But that would be my design standard. If you're not organized like that at the moment, then I think it's worth having the conversation and discussing, should you be connected like that? Should you be providing your network as just 3 networks across the whole building? All right, this one is very, very difficult to communicate with, but it affects your costs so hugely. How do people access your Wi-Fi? You can't just let everybody on because you will have no control. So you need to actually know who's on board. You need to know who's on board anyway because of diagnostics to know what's happening. All I can say is user level control. There's not enough time to go into it now. Is quite expensive to implement. However, through third party or however it means you do it, it is quite expensive. But it gives you the higher level of service that you need to support, and it is easier to automate. Recently, there's a new method, which is a company level of access, where the whole company just shares one password. That's called Identity PSK. It's becoming more and more popular. And for many organizations, it gives you a much lower cost of implementation than this level. When you go to an IT company, they may only talk about this expensive level, but this one is an option. Okay, and then the final one is obviously self-registration gateways, which you all know and love. So, next question from the product and sales side is, should you automate Wi-Fi? Should your staff have nothing to do with it at all? Somebody buys a product on the portal, they buy a day desk or something like that. Should it all happen automatically? This needs integration. Now, if you're using one of the turnkey providers, they will do this for you. There's a link, the contract's placed, and they will automatically provide it on the Wi-Fi. But if you're using an IT company and you're building it with OEM Wi-Fi, you're going to have to automate this yourself. And there is there are ways to do this. Let's start with your business management application. The 3 most common ones, Office R&D, Nexus in the States, DeskView. There may be others who offer integration as well. What this means is that when a contract takes place there, take a day desk, it will ripple through, but you have to put an interface layer in, some sort of connection, and these are the products, Wi-Fi, ISFI, and Microsoft Directory. There are other ways of doing it, but this has a cost for you to automate this. So the question is, at what stage in your business does automation become worthwhile? Message today is you can do that, no problem at all, but it does have a cost. So if you're single location, you may not find it worthwhile automating the link between Office R&D and your Wi-Fi. If you've got 20 locations, you may well find that's a good thing to do, or if you've got a very large location. Just quickly, what we mean by that is user arrives, the Wi-Fi system says, who are you? Give me some details, who you are, username, etc. It goes off to this third-party software. Says, I don't know you. Do you go to Office R&D? Says, do you have a contract? Office R&D says, yes, it's this company. Goes back to our Wi-Fi, then instructs your network management system and connect to the internet. Can be a little bit slow. Sometimes it breaks, but generally speaking, that's how you automate. No humans involved. And then finally, and this overview, you've got your system operating. What do you need to do now to deliver on your brand promise? How are you going to make it better and better? How are you going to make it more reliable? How are you going to build that confidence? And there's some obvious stuff. You know all this. You just have to apply it to Wi-Fi. Do your own ticketing. Analyze your tickets. Look at them periodically. What are the issues? Are you getting, a well-run Wi-Fi will generate only 1 or 2 Wi-Fi, one Wi-Fi ticket a month, maybe. A bad Wi-Fi will be producing them, all the time. Learn to analyze them, classify them, and find out what's going on in your system. Have long, hard talks with your providers. Have the ability to test your own Wi-Fi yourself, as if you were a user. Have some standard tests. It's great to be able to go and sit alongside a customer and say, well, here's my laptop and it's working. This is my standard test, and maybe we should be looking at what's happening on your device rather than our Wi-Fi. The portal for Wi-Fi, they vary hugely. I haven't bothered to show you today because they are quite confusing, but they should be generating some information. The portals are not designed for FlexSpace, so it won't readily be obvious. Companies they don't necessarily identify the way that you treat regard companies, but they should have a number of features, alerting to when something's gone wrong, generating reports. And when we talk about diagnostics, I thought I'd give you a little example. This is quite a nice one. People have problem getting on board. The Wi-Fi keeps dropping out. You're looking at the traffic. There's not many people connected to that part of the Wi-Fi. Can't see any issue. Your use of that spectrum is not very high, but guess what? Other people are also using your Wi-Fi spectrum. That's what we call interference, because they're not you, they're some from outside. And the whole Wi-Fi spectrum is being clogged up by other people, other devices, cars parked outside, all sorts of things. A diagnostic will help you and your IT company find these sort of issues quickly, take steps to get over it. If you don't have diagnostics, if you don't have ways of asking questions, what's going on in the system, you're just going to be sitting there going, oh, do we need to put another AP in that area or something like that, and never ever solving the issue. So that's part of your continual activity and understanding of your Wi-Fi system. And just to finish, where do user problems come from? Well, the four main causes. Let's go in reverse. You get your Wi-Fi system perfect, shouldn't be causing any issues, technically fine. You eliminate that as a cause. You understand your building. You know where it could be causing issues. You know where it shouldn't be causing issues. Okay, so that you have good understanding there. And then the last two, and probably in a well-run system, your major cause of issues on the Wi-Fi will be user devices not behaving properly, and user behavior when they don't realize they're sabotaging their own Wi-Fi. And there's a million ways they can do that, but my favorite one is putting up day planners right next to their laptop, which is full of metal, and then the Wi-Fi doesn't go through it. And big screens, big TV screens, they put in their offices and blocks the Wi-Fi signal. So there are lots of ways that users can sabotage their own performance. Going back to the beginning, the question of confidence, if your team trust the Wi-Fi, are happy, proficient, etc., they will convey basically its presumption our system is fine, the problem's with you. If you show a lack of confidence in your Wi-Fi system, then the users are naturally just going to go, well, you go and fix it. It's nothing to do with me. I'm fine. I work at home. It's the difference. And I literally have seen thousands of locations in 30 years. The difference between that expectation all comes down to how good the front of house team are, how confident they are, how well integrated that team is to the operation of the workspace. And with that, I just say thanks very much, Jane. You can come back in, and hopefully I can deal with any questions.
Thank you very much, Tony. A lot of information packed in there. So we've got a couple of questions have come in, and we've got a few minutes more if anybody would like to ask anything further. But let's so I'll just leave your slide on screen for a couple of minutes so people can take that information down as well. So question from someone watching: each client requires their own network with their own external IP. We have to guarantee their network is secure, so Wi-Fi needs to be limited as much as possible to individual offices. What's the best way of doing that? That sounds quite a big question for me, but any brief thoughts on that, Tony?
Yes, hi, Geordie. We haven't spoken in a long time. I hope you're well. Yes, you saw me trying to skip over the issue of radius and VLANs and networks without getting too technical halfway through. They don't need their own external IP because we don't have enough IP. So, but that's a philosophy. It depends on your design of space. I didn't talk about it today, but a managed workspace as opposed to a flexible space, what kind of lower down the pecking order, would have a kind of pseudo internet connection with an IP, and basically the company does it itself. Usually bigger spaces, 5,000 square feet, that sort of thing. So there is a way most flexible spaces will just have one Wi-Fi network, and the means of authentication of identifying the user will put them onto those individual networks, and that is done between the firewall and the VLAN. But thanks for asking that. I didn't clarify that particularly well. I was trying to keep it away from the technology too much. But we can debate that afterwards, or on the Substack even, if you want to. I maybe follow up with a note on Substack just to explain that a bit. That could be good use for the Substack. Any other questions?
Okay, so also for a whole building Wi-Fi, should we be using mesh products?
I think that's mesh.
Okay, I was not sure, but whether it's just something I didn't know about. But can you answer that, Tony?
Again, personal preference. I don't like mesh because you are sharing Wi-Fi with a number of devices. That will get you out of a hole. Cisco has a great thing, which is you don't use. Sorry, I should explain. Mesh is when a Wi-Fi access point gets its connection from another access point. So it's basically like a repeater. Many houses that know meshing, but they don't call it meshing, they call it repeating. It's something in a lot of homes. But obviously you've only got the same amount of bandwidth, so it can be a limitation. But the good systems, and Ubiquiti and Cisco are two of them, when they lose their physical connection or they get a bit upset, they can borrow Wi-Fi from a neighboring access point, and that's meshing. So maybe a bit of both, but designing a location solely based on mesh, only for the really dark corners where you can't get a cable to.
Okay. And yeah, a question from me. Whereas once Wi-Fi was the thing that everyone was talking about, at the moment it's AI. Is there any role for AI within Wi-Fi?
Yes and no, but I really hope I'm in my grave before it becomes too common, and I'll explain why. It's hard on the bad side of letting AI manage your Wi-Fi, which is what Cisco are talking about. It's hard enough knowing what's happening on your Wi-Fi anyway. Then with AI going off making decisions on its own, it'd be a long time before I would ever trust that. However, where it can help is the actual individual information of people connecting, disconnecting, their signal levels, their movements around the building is a huge amount of data. I could show you the log files. It's absolutely phenomenal. Okay, AI could actually process that, and you could ask interesting questions like, did Jane go somewhere in the building today where her connection dropped for a little while and it had a trouble re-establishing a connection and her device got confused? If AI can do that, that would be a great benefit and would put more control in the front of house and the operators, and less need for support desks. I haven't seen that yet. If we want to set up a working group for FlexSA on AI and have one of the chapters be on Wi-Fi control, it would certainly make life better. But I think we're probably going to wait a long time, because financially, I don't know that is going to generate a huge amount of revenue for the Ciscos of this world.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it's sort of the supporting role that AI can play in different ways, isn't it? But we hope it's not going to replace absolutely everything and everyone. Someone's asked about the slide presentation, Tony, which I suspect others are thinking about as well, because you packed an awful lot of information in there. You mentioned putting it on Substack. Is that an easy to access route for it, or for everyone?
Yes, if you go Tony Freeth, yes, okay, back to the top slide, tonyfreeth.substack.com, will find it. I know that you're sending it out, Jane, so the easiest thing is just wait for you to email out. But if you want to engage more, then go and subscribe to my Substack. You find it that I only set it up yesterday, so it's only got me on it at the moment, and a couple of others. So and if you think there's a role on Substack for additional information, debate, asking questions, getting some more information out of me from my experience, etc., without getting it free, you can get it free. So we do it there as well. But the easy way will be just to wait until you send out the presentation. Okay.
We'll certainly do that as well, Tony. And then your last slide included the link to your Substack. So if people get the presentation from us, they can hopefully click through on that. Well, thank you very much. Yes, so awful lot of information packed in there. Yeah, I'm sure people will find that really, really useful. So we'll also share this the recording of this webinar as well with everyone that's registered, and it'll be available on our website as well. We are now planning more webinars, nothing fixed yet, but keep an eye out for details of those. At the moment, we're very focused on the Flexible Space Association's annual conference and exhibition, which takes place on Tuesday, 13th of May in London. And all the information about that is available on our website. And hopefully we might see you at that as well, Tony. You're a regular attender, so hope to see you.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Tony, for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge with us, and have a good rest of the day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.